Hello, everybody. This is Nick DeTiro, Professor of Information Technologies and Computer Science, Lakeland Community College. Now, if there's one area of pen testing, ethical hacking, even bug bounty that I believe encompasses pretty much the entire gambit of information technology and computer science, and that is web pen testing, web hacking, bug bounty discovery. And the question is, why? Well, I've been very fortunate that I've witnessed the development of the web. I pretty much came of age, like many of you, where we did not have the internet, and then we didn't have the web. And then over the next 30 years, we saw this very interesting kind of approach of web pages to now the web is fairly ubiquitous. Not only is it there, we rely upon it, whether we rely upon it upon our desktop or our mobile apps. And if you watch the progression of the web development, you see that every aspect of information technology, computer science, information systems, you name it, is now become fully integrated with the web. Which means when it comes to pen testing, when it comes to ethical hacking, even bug bounty, there is very distinctive levels of expertise involved. Each aspect has its own characteristic that many people can spend an entire lifetime developing. For example, I spent the last many years in cybersecurity and networking. I don't have a strong working knowledge or professional knowledge in something like SQL databases. Do I understand databases? Absolutely. Can I rudimentarily put together databases? Absolutely. But when it comes down to the real hardcore relational database management systems, database administration, data analytics, it's something that I've not spent a great deal of time on because I've spent a great deal of time on other things. So in this video, I want to break down just where we think we are and where we are and how that really affects our pen testing, our ethical hacking, our bug bounty comes into play. So let's go up to my screen. And I think for many of us, we see the internet as this up here. We have a single server environment, what we think we see. Here I am as a user, I type the web page and it connects to a web server. And in a lot of documentation, you may hear this called the LAMP approach. Basically, everything would be housed in one particular device. And the LAMP approach just means that good chance that the web server is running a flavor of Linux. It's probably running the Apache web server. It's probably running the MySQL database. And the scripting language that of choice, I think it's around 40–50% of scripting languages on the internet, is PHP. Well, in the pen testing environment, there is much more to that. For example, what platform? We just can't assume every server on the internet is running Linux. So we have to be well aware of Linux, Microsoft, even Apple, and then other different flavors of Linux. As we know, Linux is an open source operating system, which means that there's many different flavors of Linux. Apache, then we get into web hosting. Well, yes, a good portion of the internet is being run from Apache. But what about Microsoft's Internet Information Server? What about some of the other lesser known web servers, NGINX, etc.? Each one of those may have their own particular vulnerability. Databases. Well, MySQL and a lot of other SQL engines are open source, but you know what? There's also closed source. There's Microsoft SQL, there's Oracle SQL, there's MySQL. Now, the core of SQL could be fundamentally the same, but the internal workings of each given SQL type could be different, and those are all considerations. Scripting languages, like I said, I think around 40–50% of the scripting languages on the internet are PHP, Well, there's been a big swing in other directions. We have Python, we have Java, we have JavaScript, and those are all some kind of application development programming for the internet web page. We haven't even talked about browsers and handheld devices. And finally, a lot of organizations have just turned those responsibility over to some kind of turnkey, some kind of service, whether it be Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud. I say, you know what, I don't want to deal with this. It's far too verbose, too complicated for us to really deal with. So we're just going to turn this over someplace else. So we have to take cloud security. Again, in this video, I'm just trying to show you how or why web pen testing, web ethical hacking, web bounty, and I'll break those up in a bit, are so diverse. So diverse. You can literally spend years just trying to understand the Apache web server and its nuances and its vulnerability. And then this is what we think we see. But there's a good chance this is what potentially is there. If we look at this, this is networking. This isn't even web. This is how things are networking. So we have the public side of the internet over here. We have a firewall, and then between the two firewalls, we have what they call the DMZ. And within the DMZ, we have our web servers and our mail servers, or any server in which we want the public to have access to. Obviously, there's servers that we want the public to have access to, but then there's servers or services that we don't want the public to have access to. So we put the things that we want the public to have access to, and we got to secure them appropriately. We just don't put them in the DMZ. We have to secure them appropriately, and then we have our private network. Now, what does it look on the web development side? I basically took the left-hand side of the previous slide here. And what we're looking at is, well, you have the web server. Chances are, strong chances, that is not a LAMP server. That is not a server that contains all and everything that it needs. It really has links to other places. So it's going to go through, for the simplest example would be a database. This web server is not going to maintain the database locally. It's going to make connections to over here on this database side. Same thing with any other service, any other application. Good chance the web server is not hosting that immediately. It is just making a connection to some other service on the other side of the firewall. That's when we get into things called front end, back end, full stack. With a front end environment, what you have is these are developers who focus on the front end, or what the user sees, the interaction between the user and the web page. Remember, web pages are no longer just informational where they're providing information. They're portals. You hear that phrase a lot. They're portals. They're going to have search engines built into them. They're going to have login scripts. They're going to connect you to other services. So that's the front end. Over here on the back end, that's where you get into the app development side, the people who are well-versed in PHP and Ruby, JavaScript, and they're making those really nice connections between the web page and other services, even something as simple as streaming. You have your database administrators, and those are your back-end individuals. Then you get into this new concept, and some people think it is just a marketing term, but it's a phrase you're hearing more of, and that is your full stack developers. Well, what is a full stack developer? That is the individual that knows everything, or a reasonable amount of everything, from the web server all the way to the back end, so that that individual knows how to develop web pages, knows how to make the connection from the web pages to the databases, and knows SQL programming or some form of that. So there's more integration on that full stack side. So let me flip back to this first page here. And this is what we think we see. But after watching this video, you realize this isn't even close what's going out there now. Now, if you multiply all those different factors that I covered in this video, where you have the different operating systems, think of all the penetration, pen testing, ethical hacking, bug bounty that are associated just with the different operating systems and the ports that are associated with the different operating systems. Web hosting, that's an application. Think about all the vulnerabilities that could be associated with each version of Apache or each version of Microsoft Internet Information Server. Databases, there's a whole slew of potential items there, and then scripting languages. And we haven't even talked in this video about, once we make the contact to a server, what are some of the nasty things we can do? Can we do SQL injection? Can we do cross-site scripting? Those are other factors. So pen testing, ethical hacking, and bug bounty, it's a realm into itself. Now, throughout this video, I have been using key terms over and over, and it's now time for me to just explain those a little bit, because they're similar enough that people use them interchangeably, but they're really not the same. A pen test is a penetration testing environment in which you or a professional pen tester goes in there and stress test a server, right? They do things to intentionally find problems. That is so they can easily discover it. And it's a range of things, and we'll cover that in other videos, but it's a whole range of things. So that's what a pen tester do. An ethical hacker is potentially an individual that doesn't put the system through stress, but uses the techniques to try to find those vulnerabilities. Pen tester, they may be hitting a machine before it's even rolled out, trying to find issues. An ethical hacker says, I'm going to start taking a look at this machine as if I was trying to really breach it. And then there's a new term that we're introducing in this video, and that is called a bug bounty. And what a bug bounty is a very common approach in which organizations will often pay rewards to ethical hackers if they find a problem, right? It's kind of like, well, if you find a problem, we don't want you exploiting it. Let us know so we can fix it. Here's a reward. And some of those rewards are very large. So we have the pen tester, and they will often put the machine under great deals of stress and see if they can break them, or see if a lot of it's automated, and see if they can find vulnerabilities. An ethical hacker, they're the ones who are using the skill sets of hacking to find vulnerabilities that maybe the pen test didn't find, and see if there's exploitations to those vulnerabilities. And then you have a bug bounty hunter. Those would be individuals that look for broken things, broken code, SQL injection, something more on the application side of a web server, and then reporting them for some kind of bounty. So lots involved, lots and lots involved in web pen testing, ethical hacking, bug bounty. And we haven't even scratched the surface. So that being said, let's go and learn something.